things are really not good. I mean, the second largest wheat producer, Russia, is going to have a major destruction of their crop if everything continues the way it is now this summer. What's happening?
Well, a big one that I'm not seeing in the United States media, but what it has been published overseas, there's a new finding out that the Earth has been cooling for the last 2,000 years. And it just thoroughly debunks the claim that the temperatures on the planet today are any way historic or unprecedented. This is a study that was a new study of tree data, and they have taken measurements back to 138 BC. And they show that the Earth is slowly cooling, and I have a graph on my website showing that downward trend for the last 2,000 years. This particular graph shows the Roman warm period when it was warmer than it is today. It shows a migration period when it was colder, and that's so that people migrated. Then it shows the medieval warm period, and it shows the ice age, and it shows today. And it's just, you can just see that trend line going down and down and down. But the United States media is just not reporting on that. Some of the other things that I've got, Arctic supply ships today are stuck in what the Alaska Dispatch calls brutal Bering Sea ice. Now that's another one that you probably haven't heard of lately, but it just came out that the ice is so thick that it's closing in around the icebreakers before other ships can follow. So these brutal sea ice conditions that northwest Alaska battled all winter. I know that southern, the mainland United States, the continental United States has been warmer, but Alaska, we got to remember, Alaska is part of the United States, and these resupply ships. I mean, this is the middle of July, and the Canadian icebreakers aren't able to keep up with it.
Yeah, in fact, I was watching some of these shows that are on the Discovery channels and History channels about the Arctic ice. In the last 3 years, the ice has been advancing more than any other time in recorded history along the Arctic Ocean.
Yes.
Yeah, and even though for those people who are wondering, well, why is it so hot in the Midwest and the southern United States, that's because of the drilling at the Macondo British Petroleum site 2 years ago, which caused the destruction of the loop currents. And all that heat's been trapped there in the Gulf and pumping up into the America. So extremes in climate are the standard now.
Well, this is take 2 of the same show, because it really was distorted for some reason. So just go ahead and do what you have to do to get ready for tomorrow. I just have the camera pointed at the ceiling. It's pointing up at the sky, so you don't have to stare at the screen. Just get ready for your work tomorrow. Listen to this like a radio station. I'm hoping that this is coming out a lot better than the other one.
Online at
Remember, we went live, but I'm not repeating a bunch of stuff. If you can't, I'll just replace this up and say if you can't hear that the last one, listen to this one, because it's really distorted. It sounds bizarre, and that was taken off. I taped it. Sounded fine from this end, but on the other end it sounded pretty distorted. I don't know why.
Disaster stuff.
But this should be better for you. Alrighty then. I might try to play it off the tape again, but I think it's doing some kind of feedback. Oh yes. So we'll wait and see when it comes on, because I hate for you guys to miss it. It was an excellent show. I know you could hear Alex Jones on the other show. Let's see if he's back. I doubt it.
Survival.
Yeah. See, this is taking hours just to do this one thing for you guys. It's incredible. But the information, you just can't get that anywhere else.
Save on our 3 game.
Well, That noise in the background is the tape player rewinding. There it goes.
Just 12.
I might just play that in a second. I'm waiting for the computer to come. I'd rather just lower it and see what happens.
Free Catadine Hiker water filter, a $75 value. More details.
My goodness.
First, call 8.
Yeah, all distorted before.
Tom's low price.
Don't want to keep turning the camera off because I think that does something, because the way this camera is, the mic is behind the camera.
Healthy plants.
Wow. A lot of commercials. Let me see what this does. No, I don't even want to mess with it.
Soil conditioner, fertilizer amendment.
That's why we're going live, man. We're going live for you guys. I might edit the two together. How's that one? But once I edit it, then the sound gets muffled. Let's see. Nope, a lot of commercials. A lot of commercials.
.com.
Oh, come on.
AGA.
Wow.
93.
Wow. Hang in there. Bear with me.
The GCN Radio
Here we
Network,
go.
providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Welcome back, and I didn't realize that sometimes you've got quite a sense of humor. When you gave this report about asteroid 2012 DA14, which is a 4 on the Torino scale, you also gave a recommendation for buy a couple of rabbits as pets for your kids this year and learn how to set up a rabbit hutch or a worm farm. Be prepared to move into the basement and spare room if your impact winter comes. People don't realize that climate change is something that the government expects to happen, and they're trying to get their New World Order and their global control grid in place long before all hell breaks loose. That's why there's such a panic.
That was not humorous.
I know that. I know it wasn't humorous. I know it was a real suggestion, but I wanted to kind of put a little spin on it to make it look like it's humorous. But in fact, people say, well, why do you do this last hour on Fridays and talk about horrifying things like you're talking about all the wellness and everything? Look, if you're taking nutraceuticals like a radiation protocol, you're taking nutraceuticals to protect yourself, you've got your food, you've got ageless life support, glycemics, and NutriComplete. You're ready with your water and your guns and everything, you're going to be fine. Most likely what we're going to have is something where the power grid gets knocked out, a good portion of the population goes crazy. We'll have civil defense by our militia. We'll finally get our act together. People will be deputized by the hundreds of thousands, say, here in California. And every city and town, and I know this from working with the government, within 4 to 12 days will be completely controlled by either gangs or civil militia. The military is not even part of the equation. They're going to be protecting the powers that be in the continuity government because they're such a tiny force compared to the size of our actual armed population. There's enough military armaments and power in the civilian population of the United States that if they assembled every army of every nation on earth, they could not take on the American public. That's a fact. And the fact is that only the American public could defend itself from gangs armed to the teeth because there are so many of them. When I was in Denver back in the late 90s and up to 2004 when I lived there, we had over 2,200 gangs just in a little city like Denver, which is 2.6 million people. I live in Southern California where we have 26 million people, 10 times that population. And you can take that number and add at least one more zero, so around 22,000 gangs. And some of these gangs are not little gangs, they're big gangs too. And they're armed to the teeth. Many of them have military skills, high-speed motorcycles, all kinds of weapon systems and tactics. They've actually often are ex-military. People need to be prepared for the fact that real things are going to happen, whether they like it or not. And something as simple as the power went out. I remember talking to people at the local Albertsons September 8th last year, and people were having fist fights in the aisles fighting for ice. So their food wouldn't rot in their house. Well, we've got a 20-kilowatt generator. putting on lithium pyrophosphate batteries. We're going to have more experts talking on the show regarding that. You want to have alternative water recovery. I put a water recovery system on our roof for recovering water. If you have the ability to put in a well, put in a well. Be prepared to also have extras so you can help your neighbors and friends and inspire them to have self-protection, have guns, have other non-gun things so they can protect themselves, and have skill sets so they know what to do to protect themselves and to grow food. I happen to be out in the country in North County, San Diego, but I tell people, if you're in a big city, get the heck out now. Move. Do not be in any big city from this point onward. If you have to move so many miles out and try and commute in, do it. But do not live in any big city. Live on the outskirts. Live close enough you can get yourself out of there. And if things look really bad, you have to have a plan to be able to bug out long distance. Right now, to me, my bug out is here. I don't plan on bugging out further. I believe that we're far enough away from anything that if anybody tries to cause trouble, we have so many Marines per square yard here in North County, San Diego. We have a standing army here. So, your comments, Ann?
Yeah, well, what I was saying was that if this asteroid 2012 DA-14 were to hit, and if the impact were great enough, then we might have what they call an impact winter. And then in that case, you won't have UV coming down to the Earth. You won't be able to grow food, and the animals and plants that are on the surface of the Earth will die. There'll be a mass die-out. Right. And so what you need, and what I had recommended in the note that I sent out to you, was that people put in a system of UV lights and get a couple of rabbits of the right genders, and don't tell the pet store owner what you're doing, because you may end up slaughtering these animals just to survive. And then the worms go underneath the rabbits, and the rabbit droppings are not so, they're not as odoriferous, and the worms will eat them and turn them into soil. So what you do is you have a worm pen underneath the rabbit pen, and you could set that up in a spare bedroom, and then you let them mate, and then you would have constant, at least, meat for a while. You'd have to have a UV light on them.
Yeah. Now, people need to understand that what's going on in Japan is there's a major burp radiation that's coming here, and I've got to report that 5 out of 7 Fukushima babies born have birth defects, Down syndrome, or miscarried.
Yeah.
And people don't understand
that too,
Yeah. People need to understand that. Now, you're a nuclear expert, Chris, and you see this happening. I've been trying for now a month to chase Senator Wyden's assistant, Mary Gautreaux, and I can give that phone number if people want to contact her. Her number is 503-326-7525, and you need to harass her too to say, contact Dr. DEAGLE. I'm the keynote speaker now for the Academy of Environmental Medicine, first week in October in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm going to present to the Academy the data of what's going on and what's likely to happen. This is the biggest environmental disaster, and it's on top of the Macondo British petroleum disaster, which also has Corexit 9500, with petroleum distillates dissolve the myelin sheaths and membranes, cause neurotransmitter problems and cortical atrophy in people. The combination of radiation toxicity with cesium, which also causes toxicity to the brain, seizures, and neural decay. And when you put oxidative stress, you basically make people decorticate and decerebrate, affecting the higher metabolic areas of the frontal lobes first, and the areas of the association cortex for speech and language and communication. So we're going to start seeing much more bizarre behavior as the radiation level gets higher, and the amount of birth defects is going to go right through the ceiling.
But let me just bring up Unit 4, Fukushima spent fuel pool, if I can, just for a minute. They are trying to, they announced it today that they're going to try to move some of the fuel. They are concerned about the seawater. Remember, we talked about salt water and the corrosive effect.
It's decorrosing it, yeah.
And, you know, whether they listen to us or we were just thinking the same lines, you know, now they've stepped up their efforts to try to remove the fuel, and they're going to take a test run on it, put it into a container. I'd love to see what this container looks like, because if it's any of the hotter, newer fuel assemblies, it's going to need some sort of a coolant in it. Mm-hmm. And they're going to use 2 cranes, and they're going to somehow coordinate this particular pick. It's a move. We call it a pick. You know, we'll pick it up. But they need to move this to another storage facility, and they're very concerned about what the salt water has been doing to this, and whether they can actually even put it in a larger pool. Remember, they also have that waste reprocessing facility. So, you know, this is going to be a pretty arduous task. And
these fuel rod pellets are inside of bundle arrays. And if the fuel rod pellets have agglomerated and the bundle arrays have actually been twisted by the debris and the things that have happened there, they're not likely to come out smoothly, which means they're going to either fall apart because of neutron annealing, or they're actually so bent that they're not going to come out as a single bundle array, and you may end up having to take out huge chunks of these all together. So it's a great big mess. This is not like taking normal fuel rod assemblies out by just popping them out and then sticking them in another area. They're concerned that if this goes, it's going to pop. And the fact is, they lost the non-interruptible power supply. It's virtual guarantee that sometime this seal, and you talked about this on several reports that they took this show and they brought it over when I was gone on the 14th of June and then again on the 21st on E&E News, and they put the audio up. But I want you to repeat this, Chris, so people really grasp it. When the seal goes in that reactor, no amount of pumping or uninterruptible power supplies or anything will stop it from them going critical. And then when those fuel rod assembly bundles go, the minimum radiation, and you quoted this back, I think it's, what was the name of the scientist in April that reported it? Was
Dr. Gailey?
Dr. Gailey, and he reported, and we have that report posted up in the PDF. Gailey's report showed that the radiation level will be 30 to 100 times more if only 10% of these fuel rod assemblies blow their cork. So we're dealing with a radiation release that's so massive, it'll make any work in the entire area impossible, and that radiation burp will come to North America, and we're going to start seeing more and more birth defects, more premature babies dead, more senior citizens weakened, more plagues likely, also the death of birds, butterflies, and other insects, because many of these animals and birds and butterflies are very radio sensitive. The only things that are not are things like cockroaches.
In my mind, this just confirms what we've been discussing before, because they're obviously concerned. They were going to start this operation in 2014, and now they've stepped it up to soon.
If you live, by the way, in California, contact Dianne Feinstein's office too. Again, Senator Feinstein's involved with that mission. Her San Diego office is 619-231-9712, and her office in Washington, D.C. is 202-224-3814. We need the ones that even showed some concern, we need to continue to harass them so that they deal with these issues of getting data, as I recommended from commercial airliners, and then getting an international military and nuclear mission to actually contain this mess before it comes here en masse.
Emailed me a portion of an MP3 I couldn't upload. But I know we've talked about this over the years, that you have a tapping of knowledge from your sources that there are elements of the continuity government that have received information about an incoming object to our solar system and have been told that this could impact on our continuity government. And we know that the two primary things that an incoming object, because it's not going to come within 55 million miles of Earth, this they call it Planet X, or the better term would be a dwarf star, most likely a Class 3 red dwarf, not a brown dwarf star, but a red dwarf star, because it's releasing radiation in the infrared and the X-ray bands, which are picked up by the IRAS telescope and other telescopes that are consortiums of international cooperative research going on with the Pymeson telescope under the ice sheet in Antarctica and also in other countries. There's been an astronomer actually come on air in Brazil, it's well known, that said that now they can see it. I mean, there's no doubt that there's an object in our solar system that comes back every 3,600 plus years, that this object can cause gravitational waves that can affect earthquakes and volcanoes, and it can cause coronal mass ejections. And we're moving into solar cycle 24 by next year. We're going to see some major CMEs. There's one actually heading toward Earth as we speak that's actually holocentric, which means it's actually it's going to be a direct hit, and we don't know how bad the damage will be because it's an X, it's a lower X class, which is the highest class of radiation, but it's a lower part of that scale. It could potentially cause ground radiation, cellular occurrence. It could blow power generators, power lines, and affect ground level communications and satellites. And our civilization couldn't stand a Harrington event, 1859 again, because if it happened in our day and age, our civilization would screech to a halt with no gasoline pumped, no cars delivering food, no trucks, no freeway activity, no lights, no internet, no communications by telephone or any other means. We would have some real serious problems almost immediately.
Well, it would be instantaneous, Dr. Bill. Here's what's going on. The dependence of people in the military who are considered do government contingency planning, which is a tiny part of the U.S. military, maybe 2 or 3%, are getting briefings that they need to be on standby. They may get as much as 2 weeks' notice. They may not get that much to pack up a carry-on bag, one bag of luggage, and abandon all their other personal property, clothing, appliances, furniture, and get out of Dodge. These briefings began last week, and my contacts will alert me when this thing goes down. We're expecting any time between now and possibly the 1st of November. These briefings would not be conducted 6 months or 8 months in advance. Anywhere from 1 month to 3 or 4 months at the most.
Yeah, for my sources, I mentioned on this program, a lot of people were very skeptical. Oh, DEAGLE, you're just making it up. Just like they said I was making it up about the RFID chip that was approved 6 months before the Affordable Care Act, 2.5 years ago by Sebelius from Health and Human Services, and that incorporated as a Class 2 device in the people who are opted in the Obamacare program, all children and every adult, and also, not only that, forced, quote, mandatory vaccinations for adults. And that could be up to 50-plus vaccines. I mean, people don't understand just how crazy things are. And also, the government's fully aware of this. In fact, the fact that they're not allowing the population to be aware and to start doing civil defense, because the government, including FEMA, doesn't really have any resources. They just manage the resources that are in place. So
that's right.
That's us. We need to have deputized people. We need to have people with personal resources. We need to have alternative power supplies. I even, when I contacted after September 8th problem last year, the local authorities here in Southern California to find out here, or in not only across America, but in any country, virtually every country has backup power for pumping water. But nobody, and I haven't found any country or any place yet, America, Canada, or anywhere, has backup power generators for treating sewage. So after 4 days on average,
without the other.
Right, so after 4 days they have to shut off the water, not because they can't pump, because they have backup power generators for the fire department and for the cities and towns across America and elsewhere. They don't have backup power supplies for treating the sewage, so they have to shut off the water. Now, 4 days without water, on your Liverpool protocol, you're dead.
Well, the reason for this, Dr. Bill, the fire departments and fire districts are the ones that made sure there was power for the water. And the fire districts really don't care about sewage. It's really not their interest. They want to make sure they can put out fires.
Right. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, the power supplies are more and more fragile. And our systems, by the way, when we now have gone to the smart grid, makes it easier for the Blue Army in China to actually hack in and destroy our power grid. And we're in a sense, in a technical, economic phase of a world war against China and Russia right now. This is not a maybe. This is already happening. That war, in the sense, the war warning shot was September 11th, 2001. We're in the 11th year, and I expect this year the self-inflicted wound of the debt monster they've unleashed that will destroy Europe and form a federated Europe is the move toward a grab for powerful global government. And they don't mind if they release a plague in the time or they don't deal with Fukushima, because now we've got resistant rubella and resistant TB showing up in Japan because we have a weakened population. And people think, oh no, Dr. DEAGLE, it's all made up. We're not going to have a plague of H5N1, H1N1. I have the documents. 1997, 15 years ago, March 16th, I got it right from the World Health Organization headquarters in Basel, given to me by scientists and doctors in a private meeting who gave me the documents. The WHO were directly planning this. They actually made the AIDS virus. They had a vaccine that they've been sued internationally regarding to stop pregnancy in the human chorionic gonadotropin. The World Health Organization's globalists are mass murderers. And people say, Dr. DEAGLE, that's just an exaggeration. It's a conspiracy theory. It's a way to besmirch my name to say this. So I'm saying, I'm not saying this because it's nice. I'm saying it because we could stop it. If we just had a tiny portion of even the population wake up and say, you know, I think that DEAGLE may be telling the truth. And I mean, senators and congressmen, I have had now a month of harassing Senator Wyden and getting nowhere. So now I started calling Senator Dianne Feinstein regarding what happened in Fukushima. And I expect within the next few weeks, maybe months, a major burp of radiation from Japan, and we're not going to have any advanced warning whether it's an air flight that goes through a giant radioactive plume, or radiation brought to ground by rain, or just by air masses that brings it to ground even in broad daylight without rain. We have no advanced warning that we're going to have a major radiation burp that's going to hit our populations. And the doctors are not trained in environmental medicine to pick up subacute radiation sickness. They're not going to have any idea when people start brushing their teeth and bleeding, getting disoriented and vertigo, getting vomiting, having all kinds of problems with bloody
there's no sun. The doctors are not trained, okay? They're not going to know how to pick this up. They're like I don't think anybody should be practicing medicine or nursing or any health profession, including chiropractic or naturopathy, unless they have some additional training in environmental medicine and civil defense. I think it's an obscenity that doctors in the 21st century don't know more environmental medicine. And I mentioned that with Dr. William Ray. I think it should be a requirement of medical school, chiropractic, naturopathy, and any, quote, helping profession that thinks that they know. And we need those kind of training things, too, for policemen and firefighters, because they're going to be involved with the local dealing with an environmental disaster, because we're going to have them. So,
absolutely. Well, they should. You know, most of these doctors, Dr. Bill, would spend a 40-year career and never see anything related to radiation in their entire career. So it's
well, they won't recognize it. Listen, I worked in Central Illinois, and I was the director of the occupational environmental clinic at the Pekin Hospital. We had one of the largest nuclear reactors in the United States was one of our clients. And I can tell you the local doctors didn't have the faintest clue how to recognize radiation sickness. If they had a worker that was exposed to radioactive releases inside the reactor site, they had no idea how to diagnose them. They had no idea even how to look at their peripheral blood smear, what cell type changes would occur, what kinds of symptoms people would present with in CNS or otherwise. They didn't have the faintest clue.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, not even the faintest clue yet. Ann, are you there?
Yes, I am.
When we come back, I want to hear an update on what's going on with the CME this evening. Welcome back, and what's happening with this holocentric CME? We have repeated ones, big ones. Last time, about a week or two ago, was a less than X class, an M class. This is an X, I think, 1.0 class, but it's actually direct hit toward the Earth. Where's it likely to strike, and what consequences might happen? Again, this is a warning shot that tells us that as we get into more and more energetic kill shots, we're likely to have degradation of our power grid, degradation of satellites for satellite communication and internet, which reports all business. The level of radiation also can affect behavior of humans because the magnetic field affects the transportable membrane of your brain. And the cellular occurrence, we know, are the things that cause the release of the flies, the gnats, and the frogs that occur even as the plagues of ancient Egypt. We know that cellular occurrence, even cataloged by the ancient Greeks during the passage of near planets like Venus and Mars, that caused major transfer across interstellar space, caused the release of pests deep in the ground caused by these currents, caused by interplanetary plasma discharges.
Well, they are seeing red cockroaches over in Singapore, and the government says, well, they'll go away. But I saw those
red cockroaches now. Well, yeah. Is this a new color, or is it mutating, or what's happening?
I have no idea, Dr. Bill. But yeah, we did have a flare from AR1520, and AR1520 is in the middle of the solar disk. And when you have a about 7,000 times heavier than the electrons,
Yeah.
which is why they come in afterwards. And they charged up the atmosphere, and they even had auroras around the South Pole. Now, that is very, very unusual. But they have pictures of them up on spaceweather.com. So that's how strong the proton storm was. Although they only mention it at an S1, solar storm level 1, and they go up to a 5. So it's possible that it could go higher. They're still watching it, but so far it's still at an S1. Now, in addition, it unleashed a CME, and that's a coronal mass ejection. A coronal mass ejection is a cloud that is very complicated and very compact magnetic lines of force. It's not an electrical magnetic force. It's just magnetic. So it involves our magnetosphere, which it goes in at the North Pole, comes out the South Pole, and circles around the Earth.
Right.
Excuse me.
You can actually push it into the Earth and push it out the other side as well. When those kind of forces come in, they actually push it like a balloon being pushed through the water. It pushes it down towards the surface of the Earth and pushes the magnetic flux field of the Earth and the lines of force out into space on the opposite side of the planet.
Yeah, the dark side.
Yeah.
As it turns out, we've had a fairly strong IMF, and that's an interplanetary magnetic force. And you see an IMF when the sun, for instance, is trying to align its magnetic field with a planet's magnetic field, or when a planet is trying to align its magnetic field with one of its moons. So they know about the IMF, and in our case, here with the sun, it flips direction every 8 days. So that means that if we were to align our magnetosphere with the sun's, our magnetosphere would be flipping from north to south every 8 days. All right, that's bad to think about. Anyway, the coronal mass ejection, now they've updated, they think that it's coming in faster than they thought, and they think that it's going to come in about the 14th, that's Saturday, about 9 UT, so you subtract 5 to get to Central Time, and 9 minus 5 is 4. So at 4 a.m. Tomorrow morning, it will be hitting the Earth, and then it will continue to hit the Earth. You have to understand this cloud is bigger than the Earth, much bigger than the Earth, and so it'll continue to hit the Earth as the Earth turns. And so just because it hits at, let's say, 4 a.m., that doesn't mean that that's all there is. It's not a strobe. It's a continuous beam of magnetism. And you're right. It'll push the magnetosphere towards the Earth on the sunlit side and away from the Earth on the dark side. Now, on the dark side, you think you wouldn't have any impacts from that. But as it turns out, when the magnetosphere is stretched out on the dark side, the electrons that circle the magnetic lines of force are pulled back towards the Earth, and they actually accelerate back towards the Earth. There's an acceleration of the electrons back towards the Earth, so you do get electrical effects on the dark side of the Earth.
The other thing is, if you're flying at low altitude during a CME where the magnetic flux field of the Earth is pushed in deeply, you can actually be flying at 30 to 40,000 feet, and you're actually above the magnetosphere of the Earth, or low Earth orbit satellites, and these satellites can get fried because of cosmic background radiation. You can get a major increase in even space-based radiation, even if you're at altitude. So we know I posted this in 2007, and I talked about it when I sent my information to Senator Wyden, that there's a certain amount of background solar and cosmic radiation, but when you're flying at altitudes, when there's a CME, that might be 10 or 20 or 30 times higher radiation. That's why your astronauts during a CME have to go inside special chambers of the International Space Station so they don't get cooked.
Well, that's right, but this is still just an S1, and so they don't think that it's going to do that. On the bright side of the Earth, what can happen is you can have surges in the power lines, and you can have ground currents. The ground currents will take out the emergency diesel generators, the nuclear power plants, and other power plants, and the line currents will take out your electrical equipment. So if tomorrow you miss your television put,
Welcome back, and Ann, you've got some major information about this asteroid that's been watched for 3 years. 2012
anyway, this asteroid is not one that's in the asteroid belt. This is an asteroid that came into the solar system.
Yeah, from the Oort cloud. It's an Oort cloud, so it might be. You mentioned something that John mentioned. Can you tell us about that?
Well, he thinks that it could be part of the scraps that follow the Nibiru planet.
Yeah, in other words, it's orbital debris that's around the red dwarf star that's coming into our solar system.
So this one may be a small one because it would be further out from the red sun.
Right.
But, so the next ones that come in, I mean, this won't be the only one. It's got a lot of objects around it, and the heavier objects will be closer to it, so they'll be bigger. So this one is big enough, though. This one would wipe out an area the size of the country of Luxembourg in the Eurozone, European. Yeah. So if it hits land, that's what it would do. It would wipe out. Now, the last one that hit was the one in Siberia that hit in 1908, and it hit up in Siberia. There weren't many people living there, but we still can see the effects of it because it just all the trees fell down. I mean, you can tell that something hit, and there was a huge explosion because all the trees around it, the size of the state of the country of Luxembourg, are all flat. I mean, the landscape is flat.
Yeah.
So that's what it would do. Of course, if it hit near a population center, that would be a disaster. But it would be worse if it hits in the ocean. And the reason it would be worse if it hits in the ocean is because, one, it would cause a tsunami probably.
Right.
And depending on where it hit, there would be coastlines that would be wiped out. But the impact would actually cause water vapor to go into the air. I mean, there's so much kinetic energy. This thing is 197 feet long, or 79 feet long.
Yeah, so
it's huge. And there would be enough kinetic energy, even if it broke in two.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And then we might have an impact winter.
Exactly.
An impact winter would mean that there would the amount of
crops.
disease.
Yeah, very high energy, ultraviolet light, and it would be dangerous during the day especially. Plus, we'd have a failure of all crops around the world.
Well, not only that, you'd have incessant rains. You'd have major flooding all over.
Wow.
Yeah.
We know what that's like in California. We have mudslides. We have Chris Harris here and Robert Felix. Chris, I understand you give us a little bit of updates. To give us the latest, I've got the emails here that will be posted up right after the show. You have a couple of reports about the 20 senior officials from the Korean hydro-nuclear power arrested for corruption. You've got an updated report on issues going on with Fukushima in terms of the lots of things going on. Can you give us the kind of the summary of what's happening and how serious it is?
Okay, station blackout is one of the major things that did Fukushima, and it turns out that in Korea, one of the largest plants in the world is the Quarry Unit 1. Had actually, for 12 minutes, a real station blackout where their diesels were not working and the all-site power didn't work. And recently, that was in January of this year, and there was a big management cover-up, and now it looks like these managers, I can't remember whether it was 13 or 16 of them are being sent to prison over that, and that's exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah, the Koreans are much more serious in terms of taking this seriously than the Japanese. They've got radiation detectors in the fish counters in their grocery stores. They're not messing around with this at all, are they?
No, it seems like, but I was kind of surprised, shocked, and I'm really dismayed that the industry is lacking. We talk about the adult leadership and the lack thereof, and the regulator, you can't count on them to do anything more.
Well, we haven't heard
eyewash.
So we haven't heard more than eyewash from the replacement of JASCO. Who's the new regulator for the nuclear industry? What's her name?
McFarlane,
yeah. She's apparently a geologist, and from what I hear so far, there's no rule making, there's no kind of cracking the whip. Nothing's happened. JASCO was trying to actually
days are here again. I think Jasko was more like a real scientist. He was trying to do something. And if the industry wasn't going to take care of us, I'd rather we take care of ourselves, to be honest with you. I don't want to have a regular, I don't like police looking at me. I don't like that. I want to be able to be mature enough to handle it and step up to the plate and be adult about it and handle it ourselves. But so now that's what happens when you got somebody up there who's trying to whip them into shape, and now it looks like that's what happens. You get ousted. So well, we'll see what happens.
Well, what else is happening? Robert, Felix, what else is happening in terms of the ice age that's happening? We're seeing crop failures everywhere, Argentina and Chile and Peru. We're seeing now crop failures of the corn in America, extreme drought, extreme heat now across the Soviet Union, still called Soviet Union because as far as I'm concerned it never ended, and Russia and all these other countries of the Eastern Bloc. Things are really not good. I mean, the second largest wheat producer, Russia, is going to have a major destruction of their crop if everything continues the way it is now this summer. What's happening?
Well, a big one that I'm not seeing in the United States media, but what it has been published overseas, there's a new finding out that the Earth has been cooling for the last 2,000 years. And it just thoroughly debunks the claim that the temperatures on the planet today are in any way historic or unprecedented. This is a study that was a new study of tree ring data, and they have taken...
Well, that's the report for tonight. It's just a repeat. Maybe it's a better quality. No way to know until I upload it. You have a wonderful evening. And if you couldn't hear the first one, maybe this one's going to be better for you. Have a good night.